Hello and welcome to FlightSim Alaska. I'm Dave. Today we're in Upper Trail Lake in Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. Our plan today, I'm going to use the GPS to map this out, is to fly out of Trail Lake. I'll minimize that. Let's actually put this in context. This is the Kenai Peninsula, and here we are in Upper Trail Lake. What we're going to do is we're going to fly down past Kenai Lake here, through this valley and down towards Resurrection Bay. Now, Seward, which is a city down here, didn't get rendered in very well. And so we're just going to blow right past that. I'll talk about it quite a bit as we fly through there. But we're going to land right here near Fox Island. So that's today's game plan, is to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to get us in the air, and then I'll start talking about the area. So this lake, like so many in this area, is basically glacial fed. There's not a direct glacier. I think the Trail Creek goes up to a glacier, the Trail Glacier, I think, but it's pretty far up the valley to our west, and to our east. We're pointed west right now. I'm getting a little bit faster than I wanted to be. To slow down some. I want to take off that direction in the mountains, and we're facing the Seward Highway. You can't see it there; it's below the edge of the lake. And in real life, it's above the lake, and you could see it from the lake. But as I was saying, it's bright blue, sort of like Skilac Lake and Kenai Lake. We saw those in earlier videos, and there's just a ton of lakes and rivers and creeks through this area. So there's not any major inflow I can point to. I want to say Trail Creek is probably the one major inflow we can point to. We flew over that in the last video. Let's see if I think I could probably take off now. Almost, not quite. There we go. Cool. This thing trimmed out and turned to our south here a little bit. Pardon me while I fiddle with my controls. So the highway here on our right, the Seward Highway, which goes from Anchorage south to Seward, and it intersects with the Sterling Highway, which then does go over to Kenai. This is what it's on our right here. We're right about to the community of Moose Pass. I think I mentioned it in the last video. It's a very small place, community of about 230 people or so. Not really a whole lot going on there as far as touristy kinds of stuff. There are lodges. I mean, there are touristy kinds of things, but nothing you're going to drive by and do. You're going to plan to be here if you're going to be here. You can see the corner store, that grocery store, off to the convenience store, I suppose it would be off to the right-hand side. I think they've got a cafe and stuff in there, too. It's about the only building that shows well. The rest of them are all kind of nestled in this weird hole, I guess. So that, that's community of Moose Pass. I think once upon a time there used to be a lot of logging in here. If you look at old maps and stuff, I think these dirt roads, I think these are real. I've had to look that up on maps because I don't remember seeing them. But I believe there's old logging and sawmills up in this area, and I don't think they do that anymore. We are in the heart of the Chugach National Forest here. This here is Grant Lake. It's fairly large. I think it's probably about as big as the Trail Lake system, or maybe larger. And there's Grant Creek comes out of there, feeds the Trail Lake system. There's another road here. Somewhere in here, there's an abandoned sawmill. I only just saw that on a map. I've never seen anything like it from the road. So it's not a landmark that you could actually point out from the highway. In front of us here is Lower Trail Lake. I don't really know how to distinguish them. I guess there's a little river between them. And the highway kind of gets a little bit away from these lakes for a little while through here, and is a little high up and kind of further back from the road. And again, the Alaska Railroad meets up just back there at Moose Pass with the Seward Highway, which is separated from back in Portage Valley up in Turnagain Arm there. Out here in front of us is a Trail River. It empties out of Trail Lake here, obviously, and then dumps into Kenai Lake. And I think in previous videos I neglected to give you the Alaska Native, the Dena'ina name of Kenai Lake, and that would be Skilanbena. And what that means is something to the effect of there's a ridge there. Yeah, ridge is their lake. I don't really know what that refers to. I couldn't really find it in Shempitz, Alaska, or anything like that. But I suspect it refers to something important that would make more sense if we didn't translate it literally. So let's see what else is in this area. So we're kind of coming up here to an area that does have a landing strip. The railroad kind of crosses over. Camping. There's camping here. There's a campground right through here. My father-in-law took me fishing out here a number of years ago. My wife and I, sort of a October day or something like this, sort of cold and windy, and that's what you often see in here, sort of overcasty, cold, windy. This beautiful sun is not really the norm for this area. Also, one interesting thing, several videos ago, I pointed out that the sim doesn't necessarily render old fires. I think it did here. Back about, holy moly, this had to be pretty close to 20 years ago. My wife and I moved out of state for a year. I went down to Maryland, and we almost got blocked on the way out. I think it was maybe a sign, but this was all on fire, and that looks like it rendered in the remnants of that. And I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, so there's a landing strip here that I don't think it got rendered in. Maybe that's it. You can see it from the road. And there are people that all live through here. Now, the highway actually kind of climbs up a hill, and it's actually fairly high up on this ridge here. And you can get some beautiful, beautiful views of Kenai Lake. And I don't remember how deep Kenai Lake is. It is the third largest lake on Alaska's Kenai Peninsula. It doesn't really freeze up in the wintertime. It's fairly temperate in here. It doesn't get real hot. I mean, you're not going to see 80-degree temperatures in the summertime. You know, we're looking at 60s and 70s at kind of the hottest. But you don't get particularly cold in the winter. It does get cold in here, but not so cold that this is going to freeze up. At least not since I've ever been here. Maybe historically or something like this, but in 40 years of being here, I've never seen it. So yeah, look at this. Very pretty place here. It's, you know, rendered reasonably well. This is all high spruce trees through here and just very scenic. The road is very narrow and kind of dangerous through here. There's avalanche areas. This one here is one of these avalanche areas you get in the wintertime. It kind of tears out all the foliage, and that's well represented, I think. Yeah, again, a lot of pullouts here. Kind of comes down. The road comes down here and gets flat again, and then it sort of climbs back up a little bit for a little while over here. And I forget the name of this creek, but it's not full and big like a river like this. It's a lot of rocks and just sort of one braided channel that runs through there. Maybe not braided channel, but sort of one channel, and you get these river washed rocks. It's a pretty scenic little spot. This here is an area called Primrose, basically a census designated place. I don't know how many people live out here. Not a lot. It's not really a city. There's lodges and stuff there. Actually, there's lodges all throughout here. There's a place along this stretch which I am always forgetting. I always feel like when I'm driving it, it's right in here, but I think it might actually be back there further. But it's in one of these places where the land comes out. It's called IRBI Knives. And the only reason I want to call that out, not advertising or anything like that, is that they used to have a mannequin. He'd stand out front, dressed up fancy with heels and that kind of thing. And then somebody kept stealing it. So that was kind of a drag. People were pretty disappointed when that mannequin disappeared. And you know what? Maybe it's still down there. It's been years. I just know that people kept stealing it. Maybe it's chained down. I don't know. So through here, this is the Snow River, one of the other major inflows of the Kenai Lake. The highway crosses over here, and the railroad crosses further up. In here, there's all tall cottonwood trees. There's an eagle's nest in here somewhere that seems like it's been there for a gazillion years. Again, we're still pretty much in the Chugach National Forest throughout here, and there's chunks along the highway that are not Chugach National Forest. This lake artifact, again, this should be almost exactly flush with the highway, just to give you a sense of where that should be. So sometimes these things are about as high above the road as they should be below the road, and sometimes it's just wrong. It should be totally flat. So I don't know. Kind of hard for me to interpret what the heck this sim engine is doing here. So again, this is Snow River. It's Snow River up this valley, and then it's South Fork Snow River going down that valley there. This is glacial fed. There are hanging glaciers all throughout here, and you do see them driving through. But the main feeder glaciers you don't see. You do see sometimes this will flood. In the last couple of years, I think it's done it a few times, where there's these glacial dams way back in there, and I don't know which side it's on. They'll break, and then water will flood down in here, and it's nothing biblical or that just sort of inundates the area with gray, silty water. Doesn't wash out the bridge. So again, we're following the highway here. Again, the railroad is off to our left, and it crosses back over again. I feel like it actually goes under the highway over here, and then crosses on this side, and then it crosses again later on, and eventually is on the left-hand side of the road as you're going south. And the Alaska Railroad is it's not a commuter train service. It's freight. They do freight and they do passenger service. So if you're coming from Anchorage to Seward, you can get on the railroad, the Alaska Railroad, and come down and do a day cruise or something like that. You don't have to drive, which I think is pretty cool. Get a little bit of elevation here. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to make it through this canyon. So I think I neglected to mention that we've kind of passed out of Dena'ina Athabascan territory and we're moving towards Aluptic territory. And from what I understand, there's in living memory at least, and from what some anthropologists that I know understand, there wasn't a settlement here um, before white contact, or immediately before the Russians came up, or it was established. This community was established, a community of Seward. I think Seward may have been here as something else, as a trapping community when the Russians were here. My history that far back isn't so good. Another one of these pullouts. This one in particular is incredibly scenic. All this forest through here is just gorgeous. This does not do it to justice. It is really, really pretty through here, and especially when it's clear. You know, a lot of times, again, it's sucked in and it's raining and it's miserable because that's Seward. It's a rainforest. Again, this part of this forest, Chugach National Forest, is part of a temperate rainforest that stretches all the way down to the Pacific Northwest. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of miles. And up in front of us here, this road does kind of run through a bit of a canyon. I find that kind of dangerous driving it in the wintertime, but also gorgeous. The snow gets fairly deep in here. I've been through it a few times when the weather was bad enough. I thought I was not going to make it through the other side. But you know, once you kind of come around this canyon, it starts to open up a little bit, and the road is a little safer. You kind of come down a hill, and it doesn't feel very well represented to me. I mean, I do remember this turn, and it comes down. There's some hiking trails and trailheads all in here, and actually all throughout this highway, all the way up and down. There's trailheads everywhere. They don't really turn up in the sim, obviously, but it's pretty good. Now up here is Bear Lake. This should be down considerably further. I do not know what's going down. I'm pretty sure this is about the same level as the highway, and this makes it look like it's 500 feet above it. I mean, it might be a little bit above it, but it is not that high above it. And I could have landed here. I thought about it. There's not a lot going on, but then it was going to be a short video. It's, you know, as it is, this video is going to be around 35 minutes, I think. Tough to say. I've actually filmed it a bunch of times. I keep having trouble with my microphone. I just don't have the best setup here. I've got kind of a loud computer, a lot of fans going on, and not a very big space to record. And my kids are in the back behind me here listening to loud TV, and that kind of messes with my noise cancellation. So anyways, that was a total digression. I'm sorry. Back to Alaska. So here's Resurrection Bay. Fox Island is down here. Seward is out in front of us, or would be if it rendered in down there. This is the Resurrection River. As I've said, I think repeatedly about all the rivers throughout here. This one is, again, it's glacial fed predominantly. Some mountain streams come in there as well. And it is not, it's tidal down in here. So if the tidal come up, but not that far, it's largely, again, mud banks and sandbars and that kind of stuff. And, you know, braided channels of gray, silty water. And it's actually a fairly swift river all the way down from its source. And I'll kind of look over to the source here as we get a bit further up. Again, sort of like with Moose Pass, there used to be a bit of logging in here. You can kind of see the remnants of that. There's a sawmill out there that's no longer in operation, and I don't really know the history behind why the logging is no longer going on. And there may be some moderate, small scale logging going on through here. I'm not that familiar with this side of things. I am more familiar with the tourist side of things here. I did work in tourism in Seward, and so I got to learn a lot of little tidbits and stuff. Most of which I've forgotten and had to dredge up for this video, and probably will just forget to say anyways. So again, here's Seward. I'm super, super duper disappointed this did not render in better. There's a few buildings I'm going to call out specifically that do turn up, but it just didn't show. I mean, this is a very big tourist town. I highly recommend you come here. If you come to Alaska to visit, you're not probably going to be far at one of your stopping points in Anchorage or what have you, to come down here and spend a day or two and just hike, explore, maybe take a day cruise fishing if you're into that kind of stuff. This is a really good place to go. And there are a lot of other places that they're good to go for the same reasons, but Seward in particular, I always really like lots of places to stay. That's not always the case. I mean, as we fly through Alaska, there's going to be places we stop. It's not a place that you're really going to go. If you're not from here, you're not going to go there. Again, you can see that all filled in. Now, you can kind of see it here. Just off my nose is a road on this north side of the river, Resurrection River, that goes up to Exit Glacier. And Exit Glacier is inside the Kenai Fjords National Park. And it's a glacier that comes almost all the way down to sort of ground level. It's moved its way quite a bit up the mountainside since I was a kid. Yeah, see, there's the Exit Glacier Road. Now, one thing that's really cool about that is that the National Park Service has done a tremendous job in trying to make it wheelchair accessible. You can get very, very close to the face of this glacier, get very beautiful pictures and very beautiful sightseeing if you're disabled and can't really hike and get into the backcountry. So if that's something that you want to do and you can't really hike or anything like that, this would be a place that you could probably go and look at that glacier right there. I have more to say about that probably later on. So we're kind of flying towards the mountains here. Don't want to do that. The road is reasonably authentic in the railroad. Right here, there's a big boat harbor. Doesn't show anything. This is a dock for cruise ships. For there's what else? The ferry comes in there, ferry terminal. Also, there's a coal terminal here as well. So coal from Healy, which is several hours north of here. Train cars will come down with coal that's mined out of their coal mine and drop it off here, and then those ships go over, I think, usually to Korea. So here's Lowell Canyon. You can kind of see Seward was built out on the outflow of that. It's since been diverted through a canyon or tunnel. I always understood it to be a tunnel. This looks more like a canyon the way it's represented here, but it definitely doesn't go to the mountain. And this year's Mount Marathon every year. Have a race to the top of Mount Marathon and back down up 4th Avenue all the way up. It's a big party. They close down big chunks of road and things like that all over here. And again, there's hiking trails all throughout this place, and I'll talk about some of those up here just a little bit. Yeah, the Mount Marathon race, Lowell Canyon. This is the Alaska Sea Life Center. It's an aquarium and a rehabilitation center, and it rendered in pretty true to life. The shape of the building is about right. It's a really cool place to visit. That is where I had my wedding reception. I got married in Seward, Alaska. My father-in-law still lives here. My mother-in-law was a long-time community leader, a city councilwoman and mayor and all kinds of stuff for a very, very long time. So I have a pretty big connection to this place, and I'm a little heartbroken actually that it didn't render in better than this. Of any of the communities I really wanted to see, I would love to see get hand modeled that I would pay for. This is one of them. Yeah. Oh man, I could just go on. Let's see. So much to say. I'm running out of space here before I run out of things to say. So this out here, Spring Creek Correctional Facility, probably has the best view of any prison in the whole universe. This was that old sawmill I was talking about. There's dry docks and things out here. You can get out here. You can drive out here. I don't find it that interesting. I think there are hiking trails back in here, though, that I've never been to. I think you can hike to the top of Mount Alice, which is one of these I forget. And then out here, this is Lowell Point. You can drive out to Lowell Point. Right here, let's tip to the left and not crash. There's a road there. It's mountain on one side and ocean on the other, and that is it. There's not much in between. So you can come out here to Lowell Point. You can go camping out here. There's a lot of cabins. There, I think, are a couple of kayaking companies that will take you out towards Resurrection Bay in kayaks. You can continue hiking past there and go up to Tonsina Creek. Or if you're super duper adventurous and really a good hiker, you can go out to Cain's Head. That's this place right here. It's a state recreation area out here. And Cain's Head, you got to be careful because you got to watch the tides. You go out as the tide's going out, and you come back just as the tide is coming back in on the other side of it. I always, when I worked in tourism down here, would tell people to just plan to stay overnight. If you're going to go all that way to such a scenic location, why just go out and come back? I mean, you can. It's a thing, but it's also dangerous. People will disappear out here. There's bears. It's for lack of a better phrase, it's sort of the real Alaska. It is fairly remote. It's kind of off the grid, but it's not so remote that you couldn't get rescued if you needed it. So let's see what else we got to say about this place. Man, this place is beautiful. It's so full of wildlife. I think this is Glacier here. I think it's Alice Glacier. I think that's what it's called. Used to be you could get FlightSim tours up in here, and then they land on a helicopter, and you could do dog sledding up here. And I met a lady who was doing that maybe about 20 years ago when I was working in tourism here. And I don't know if they're still doing it. I suspect they are because it's a popular tourist thing to do, doing the dog sled thing on ice. And then also visiting the glacier at the same time. I know they definitely do it down towards Juneau, and I'll probably do a little bit more research as we get down towards that side of the state. But that's going to be a ways off. There's a lot of places that we're going to visit yet. So now here we are heading towards the Gulf of Alaska, way out there in the Pacific Ocean, looking south. This is Fox Island. This is Hive Island, and there's Rugged Island. It's kind of flows off the mouth of Resurrection Bay. Big ocean rollers out here when the weather's not so great, or even when it's pretty good sometimes. And that all calms down to where it's, you just kind of get light chopping here. It's not usually too bad. I think when big storms come in, it gets bad, but nothing like the open ocean out there. And I think in the springtime, tour companies that they try to start operating in May, but frequently the weather's not good enough, and they'll cancel a bunch of their cruises because if it's higher than 6 foot waves out here, that they're not going to do it. And it's not just the tour boat operators, day cruise guys. It's also fishing boat operators or charter boat operators, the same kind of thing. It's not that safe to bring folks out. In terms of wildlife out here, there's sea otters, sea lions, harbor seals, orca whales. I think will come up in here. All kinds of fish. I've seen sharks actually come out over in here. What else? Birds galore, puffins, cormorants, mirrors. Just if you're a bird person, this is a great place to visit. So looking up here to Thumb Cove, there are day use cabins. I think that are operated by, I don't know if it's a national park or the Forest Service. I really forget who operates them. But you can take a water taxi out here and get off the grid and stay overnight. And I have never gotten the opportunity to do that, but I sure would like to. I mean, could you imagine trying to just be out there all by yourself? Nothing going on, no traffic, very little human interaction. Bears probably, but that's it. Very calm. Sounds great. So here we are passing over Payne's Head, Callisto Head out sort of in front of us here. We're going to go around that and we're going to check out Bear Glacier. I mean, that's going to be our major FlightSim thing for the day. And then we're going to come back and land just on this side of Fox Island. Now, Fox Island is interesting and for a number of reasons. One thing in here is that one of the tour companies does operate a lodge out here, and you can come stay. They'll come out with their boat and they'll bring you out for lunch, and then you can continue on and go out towards Holgate Glacier and that kind of stuff. Or you can stay overnight, and then you can finish your cruise in the morning. I've always wanted to do it. I work for the tour company that operates that, or at least used to, and yeah, always really seemed exciting to me. I don't remember how expensive it was, but I remember it wasn't actually super outrageous. It wasn't cheap, that's for sure, but it was kind of made me feel like it was kind of affordable almost. If you're dropping a grip of cash to come visit Alaska, this might be something you check out. Yeah, boy, look at this. So pretty. So we're heading out towards Bear Glacier right now, which comes off of the, I want to say Holgate. That's not right. The Harding Ice Field. And let's maybe look down at our GPS and just kind of look to see where we're at. Zoom it in, give you some context. So here's where Seward was. You could kind of see the circle where the doggone airport ought to be. Fox Island here and Thumb Cove up in here. That looks like a thumb, doesn't it? And then we're going to come down around to Bear Glacier. Now, on older maps, I found Bear Glacier comes down all the way to here, and then there's just this lake that's the opening, and it's receded way back up in. And that is just true for pretty much every glacier that I know about. There's, I think, one that's quote advancing, but it is not what it sounds like. It's sort of advancing, and that's how it's sort of degrading. That's at least what I understood from what I read about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Fox Island. Gosh, I got totally off track here. So the other interesting thing about Fox Island, I think, and the one that I can draw off the top of my head, is that a famous artist by the name of Sidney Lawrence came up here in the early 1900s and stayed. And Fox Island is one of the places that he stayed, and he painted a lot of pictures of Resurrection Bay and the surrounding areas, and a lot of those are still available to go see in museums locally. In particular, the Anchorage Museum in downtown Anchorage, they've got some Sidney Lawrence paintings, and if you visit Alaska and you go to that museum, you're going to be able to check those out. And I think he did a bunch of other stuff too. And I don't know. I think he was a pretty interesting guy. I did a little bit of research and didn't see anything that really piqued my interest that I really wanted to share. Fox Island, I think, is named not because of native foxes, but because the Russians, fur traders, came up here, and I think they put a bunch of foxes out here and they kind of farmed them for the fur trade. And it was a lot of what the Russians did when they were here. So we're going to come around Callisto Head here and turn towards Bear Glacier in just a second. I want to get a little further out. Yeah, you get the idea. This is super pretty over here. I think the way these islands render, there's some problems with the texture. You can see it's a little extra smooth. Probably shouldn't be that way, but the trees and stuff up here on this feels really, really cool to me. I really like how it looks. Okay, I think we come over now. Over towards Bear Glacier. Now, tour companies generally don't come up in here. I mean, as we come around, it's going to be pretty obvious why. And they don't even really get close here. I think it must be shallow in this area. And now, The Resurrection Bay is actually fairly deep. I want to say it's about 950 feet deep at its deepest. So it's something like 500 feet deep on average. It's it's a deep fjord. Those mountains plunge right into the ocean down. You can see these day cruises. They're not going to get up here. They can't get close enough, and it's just not that interesting to come spend all the time to come over here when you could go over this into the Ialic Bay on the other side of this Ialic Cape here and see glaciers that you can just float right up to. And I couldn't find a name for this lake or this sort of glacial outflow or whatever it's called. It does look like it's actually in the right spot in terms of elevation. I know I kind of complain about lakes being, above the scenery compared to where they ought to be, but I think Bear Glacier is correct. I think this is rendered probably one of the best glaciers that we've seen so far. Um, Obviously, there's things that I kind of am grumpy about that I'll point out. First thing that I have to point out, like, which maybe is obvious, maybe it's not, is there are no icebergs in here. In the summertime, anytime really, this is going to be full of icebergs. Maybe super full, maybe just a few here and there, but there's going to be icebergs. This thing pushes down from the Holgate. I'm sorry, from the Harding ice field is pushing down to where its face is, and this face should be raised up above the water. That is one thing that's kind of not right. And then it'll drop huge chunks in, and they'll float down to the edge. And you can see them here. I mean, the edge of the water has got the icebergs, and I suspect that just got picked up from the imagery. Yeah, you can see some right here too. Actually, I think that's a neat feature. If there's a couple of icebergs floating around here, that'd be really cool, I think. But anyway, so this is going to be like 50, 100 feet high, base. But other than that, this is kind of like what you see if you're tooling past in a boat. This is kind of, you're going to see this off in the distance. I find it fairly scenic. I always kind of wanted to get closer to it because it just looks like a spectacularly huge glacier, and it looks like it really is actually. But you can't get a tour boat up in here. Now that said, I do think I might be wrong about this, but I do think that some of the kayaking companies will take you up into here. Oh, look at that stream there. Doesn't that look good? It's so real looking. Love it. And these are way craggier than this. This should be all just pillars of rock. But this still is pretty representative. I mean, the mountain peaks are where they're supposed to be. The cliffs are where they're supposed to be. Maybe not as dramatic as I'd like them to be. Is what it is. Again, there's icebergs down here. It'd be great if there were more floating out in the middle. This is kind of a minimal iceberg situation. Kind of see the ocean rollers crashing here. As you fly by, if you're not really paying attention, it almost looks like they're moving. And again, I think that this is really raised above the ocean like this. I think this is correct. I don't think this is a rendering problem. I feel like this is probably really what it looks like. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is this slide here. I don't know whether this is just from normal erosion processes or maybe during the 1964 earthquake, some of this sloughed off into the ocean here, but this looks really real. I don't remember this specifically. It's been a very long time since I've come out here, but that looks really authentic. And that's another thing I neglected to mention is that this whole area was ravaged by the 1964 Good Friday earthquake. It was like a 9.6 earthquake that just totally destroyed the area, and there's a huge tsunami that absolutely wiped out the city of Seward. The railroad used to go all the way around towards where the Sea Life Center is now, that building that I pointed out. And you can still see the old pilings if you drive by there, but it doesn't go anywhere near there these days. And apparently there's oil terminal and stuff, a standard oil terminal, and that caught fire and burnt down. And I want to say the land dropped here. This place is just wrecked. I don't know if Seward ever really recovered. Some other things that happened in here: 1989, we had the Exxon Valdez oil spill just over in Prince William Sound over there, and I'll talk about that when we get to Prince William Sound. But it did affect this area. I understand there were some herring runs in this area. Herring, if you don't know, are small fish, maybe 4 inches long. Popular sort of their bait fish, but also that's what you make kippers out of. And herring roe, that's popular in Asia. It's a big export for Alaska when we can get it. But that fishery was basically decimated and it's never really recovered. I don't know if it was on this side. I'm pretty sure it was mostly in Prince William Sound, but this area was also impacted by that 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill. Turn left here and come towards Fox Island. On maps, this thing turns up as Reynard Island sometimes on older maps. I've never heard anybody call it that. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, but it's just Fox Island. And this here is Sunny Cove. I looked and looked for a name for this. I don't know that I've ever heard it. So I don't know what that would be called. Got nothing. So yeah, this is Resurrection Bay. This is what I wanted to share today, and I'm actually kind of glad we went all this distance out here because it's really pretty. Now, normally you wouldn't see it like this. It's going to be overcast. I think in the next video I'm going to do it overcast or cloudy to give a more representative look. And really, if you come out here to visit, it's probably going to be overcast. Days like this are pretty rare in this region. Not unheard of. I've definitely been out here when it's been like this, but this is not common. And I think it's prettier, honestly, when it's cloudy. You know, wildlife tends to be out a little bit more active because it's not as warm or uncomfortable. I mean, yeah, and these waters are cold. That's the thing, and maybe mention too is that this is, I think, North America's, or certainly Alaska's northernmost ice-free. So we get these warm Japanese currents that come up in here, keep this thing all ice-free, but it's still dang cold. You cannot swim in this bay. I mean, you could probably go wading or something if you wanted to, but the water's like, I don't know, 36 degrees or something. I mean, you go hypothermic within 5 minutes or something trying to go into this water. It's not safe. So here's that lodge I was talking about, little cabins out here. I remember this just being super duper pretty coming out here. I did it, say, twice maybe. I worked for that tour company, and I've gone by here a bunch more times. Seen it. There's like a dock that comes out here. They dock people there and bring them in for lunch, and you go out. Everything after that. Let's see if I can get this thing down here. Cool. So I think at this point, oh man, look at that reflection. I love it. I don't think I have a whole lot more I want to say just right now about Resurrection Bay. We're going to come back starting around this area next video, I think, and I'll have a lot more to say about it, that more geography. Sadly, I don't have a lot of Alaska Native facts for this area. Like I said, that we don't think there was an Alaska Native settlement in recent times. Seward is home to the Katuchek tribe, but that's sort of more recent. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more content, hit subscribe. I'm having a fantastic time doing these. I'm loving touring Alaska with you, and I will see you in the next video.